Well, hello, everybody. I'm Matt Johnson with SFREP. I'm glad that you could join me today. We're going to be talking about building reports and templates in Appraise-It Pro. Now, some of you may have come thinking that this was going to be just a general webinar on Appraise-It Pro. There was a little bit of a mix-up. We're actually doing that on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. This one is going to be on building reports and templates. I encourage you to stay because this is kind of the key thing that everyone is going to need to know and understand in order to be able to use Appraise-It Pro effectively and to make that transition from Appraise-It Classic. And what I'm going to do is I've got Appraise-It Classic loaded up here as well, and I'm going to show you how you do things in Appraise-It Classic, and then we'll compare that to how you do them in Appraise-It Pro. Now, I tell everyone this, even in the general session, that you can have Appraise-It Pro on your system along with Appraise-It Classic, and they will not interfere with each other. So what I encourage you to do is call our sales department after you get off the phone here, or call them tomorrow, whenever it's more convenient for you. You can even email them, sales@sfrep.com, and tell them that you want to go ahead and get set up with Appraise-It Pro. It's no additional charge as long as you're on our subscription plan. Then Appraise-It Pro is included in that. They'll get you set up, and then they can get you with our tech support that can then assist you if you need it in downloading and installing Appraise-It Pro, and then you can start moving over to it at your own pace and at your own leisure. Now, keep in mind that eventually, now we don't have concrete plans right now to discontinue Appraise-It Classic, but just keep in mind that as technology keeps progressing, that Classic is not going to be updated with new forms, things like that, new features. And eventually, when the new UAD forms come along that are going to be more dynamic forms, then Appraise-It Classic will not have those added either. And that will pretty much be the killing off of Classic. So if you want to have time to be able to move over to Appraise-It Pro, I'd encourage you to start that process now. Now, as I was telling everybody who was here earlier, if you have any questions or comments, you can use the little, there's going to be like a little comic bubble icon in GoToMeeting that will allow you to chat, ask questions, say comments, whatever. I encourage you to do that. I will check those periodically, and then we'll answer those questions for you. If you're watching, if you can't find that, or you come up with a question later on, or if you are watching this, because we are recording this, if you're watching this later on, you can feel free to email training@sfrep.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Now, if you need assistance, like technical assistance, still use our technical support. But if you just have some general questions or how to do something, feel free, training@sfrep.com. And if you need to get in touch with technical support, they are simply tech@sfrep.com. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen over here so you guys can see what's going on. Okay, so I already have Classic and Appraise-It Pro pulled up. Now, what I want to do first is show you how you would go ahead and build a report in Classic. We all know this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the concept here is what is important for you to understand and know how it's different in Appraise-It Pro. And once you know and understand this concept, everything else just kind of clicks into place. So in Appraise-It Classic, you would of course go to File, New. You would choose what type of report you want, open it up, and then you would have the first 6 pages of the report here in the main editing window ready for you to edit and type out your report. And then if you needed an addenda, you would come up here to Contents, and then you would, and I didn't have a hand in designing this. It's a little convoluted, but you would basically search through here trying to find whatever addenda that you needed to find. And occasionally it wouldn't be available and you'd have to add it to your report, which would mean making a skeleton and blah, 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 and it just gets complicated from there. But most of everything that you need is under the contents menu. So like if I wanted to find, say, an REO, I'd come down here to additional addenda and then just kind of search under the R's. Most of the time they're in alphabetical order, sometimes they're not. And it's not the easiest thing in the world. But the concept is that everything that you need is under the contents menu. You just have to find it and fill it out. And then when you go to either create in Mismo XML or to print, then that's where you would build your report and set the order that everything will go in. It's different in Appraise-It Pro. and it's much easier in Appraise It Pro. So we're going to go over that and show you how that works. So let me switch back over here to Appraise It Pro. When you start Appraise It Pro, this is where you will be. Actually, you'll be here on the welcome screen. This is just some information that might, help you out. And so you'll come over here to New. And what I'm going to show you first is starting with just a blank template, and then we'll go over how you make templates, okay? But what we're going to do is we're just going to start with a blank standard UAD 1004. So the way I'm going to do that is, if I for whatever reason didn't know where a 1004 was, I could type in 1004, and then it will only show me the Fannie Mae 1004 forms. So I'm going to select this UAD one, and I can single click on it. And over here will be where my templates are. You can think of templates sort of like skeletons, but way easier. Trust me. I'll show you how that works in a minute. And then once I've selected it, I could select default template and create report, or I could just simply double click on default template or this Waynesville template. Or if I want to just open up the default template, I can just simply double click on the UAD 1004. Now that's going to open up Appraise It Pro. Now, I'm not going to be going over how to use Appraise It Pro in general. We're going to be focusing on this report panel here. If you still need to get a general overview of Appraise It Pro, join us on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll post in, we're going to send out an email, and we'll also post on Facebook a link to that, so you can join that as well. There's no sign up, just like this one needed. So over here is the report panel. And in the report panel, I have basically a table of contents for this default report. Now, similar to Appraise It Classic, we populate this report with some of the things that most of the time you're going to need when you're doing a 1004. Things like sales comps 4 through 6, there's a sketch page, there's the flood map. And if I open these up, they'll open them up in a tabbed interface up here at the top. So I don't need the sketch, so I'm just going to go ahead and close that. But you can take a look at everything you need, sales comps, photos 4 through 6. You could double click on that, and you could look at it, flip back and forth. You can even pull these out if you want, just like you could in a web browser like Chrome, and then you can just pop them back in. When you don't need it and you're done with it, you can just click the close there. And of course, that's just going to send it back over here to the table of contents in the report panel. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just not being displayed in the tabbed interface up here at the top. Now, here's the concept. If you take anything away from this webinar, this is what you need to know. And this is the difference in concept between Classic and Pro. In Classic, you basically fill out what you need, and then you build your report at print time. And then you had print schemes, and that would help you in remembering what you actually sent to the lender, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there are no print schemes, really. There are no print schemes in Appraise It Pro because they're redundant. They're not needed. Because what you do is you build your report as you go. So you can build the report at the beginning, or you can add forms and addenda as you go along. So the way that works, and by the way, you also set the order in which they will print as you go along as well. So let's tackle that first. In doing the order of the report, let's say I want my location map to be at the very beginning. I know most people wouldn't do that, but let's just, for the sake of argument, say, hey, I want this to be at the beginning of the report. So what you can do is you can simply click and then drag it up here to the top, and now the location map is there. You can also use these little arrows here if you want to move it up and down. I find it a lot easier though to just click and drag it. So I'll put that up at the very top. Now you'll notice that some of these have little icons next to them. The star icon means that that's the primary form, so obviously you can't delete that. You could put a new primary form into this report and then essentially change this report from a 1004 to say a 2055, although usually you'd go the other way around, but you get the idea. But you can't remove the primary form for obvious reasons. Also, you see these little padlock icons here. That means for things like the report profile and the extended comments, those cannot be removed either. Now, you don't have to include them in the report. So most people don't include the report profile in the report that they send to the client. You can if you want, but most people don't. But you can't remove it here. You can just say don't print it when you're ready to print. And finally, we have the little green plus icons. Anywhere where you see that there is a little green plus, what that means is that you can, it's a quick way of adding more of that to the report. So if I want to do, right now I've got comps 1 through 3 in the main body of the report, and then comps 4 through 6 as an addenda. If I want to have comps 7 through 9, all I have to do is click this little plus, and that will add comps 7 through 9, and it will also add sales comps photos 7 through 9 automatically. Now, if you don't want it to do that for some reason, then there's a setting under settings, but I don't really understand why anyone would want to do that, but we give you the control if you want to do that. And if I want to look at any of these, I just simply double click on them, and then they will show up here in the tabbed interface, and I can fill them out. You'll notice that each of these have like little numbers next to them. And that means that you can include an unlimited number of comparables. So in Appraise It Classic, doing more than comps 7 through 9 was pretty difficult. However, now I can sit here and I can add comps 10 through 12, comps 13 through 15, 16 through 19. And of course, as I'm doing that, it's also adding the photo pages associated with that. Now, big asterisk that needs to go next to that. Remember that not all portals, not all delivery methods support having that many comps. So just keep that in mind. And of course, the more photo pages you're adding, the more comps you're adding, the larger the file is going to be, the file ends up being. So keep that in mind. But let's say you're just doing a non-lender appraisal, you want to put 15 comps in there, knock yourself out. Now, if I don't want one of those, let's say I accidentally put 16, these two right here, I put too many in, I can select them, click remove, and say yes. Select this one, click remove, say yes. Now, when you're removing, you do have to come down here and you have to manually remove the photo pages as well, so keep that in mind. But when you're adding, it adds them automatically. Now, let's say that you want to add something to your report that, and I'll get to your questions here in a minute. I see there's one, at least one in there. If you want to add something to your report that is not already in there, so you just can't hit the green plus, what you can do is you can click on the add button up here at the top. And now I can do a search, or I can browse through and find exactly what I'm looking for. So let's just say that there's some random FHA form that I'm looking for. So I can type in FHA and it will show me everything that has FHA mentioned either in the title or the form ID, anything like that. So let's say I want to add the exterior only FHA COVID-19 addendum. That's what a lot of people are using right now. So what I can do is I can click and I can drag that over here into the report where I want it. Let's say I want it at the very end, I could just double click. But let's say I want to put it, I don't know, before the flood map. So I can click and drag it here and put it above the flood map, drop it, and there it is. It had to go above this because I think this thing, yeah, I can move it down there. So there we go. Now I've got it above the flood map, FHA COVID-19 addendum, exterior only, save and close. And now if I come down here to, where's my flood map? Right here, there it is. And it is a multi-page, so there's 3 pages to it. And if I double click on it, it'll open it up. And here are the 3 pages for that particular form. And when I'm done with it, I can just click the X to close it. Real simple. So as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm building my report as I go along. And I'm choosing what the order for that report will be as I go along. And if I need to make any changes, all I have to do is just click and drag them to make changes. We do allow you to make order changes when you're printing like you did in Classic. I discourage you from doing that though, for one reason. And we only added that because people requested it because it's what they were used to. I discourage you from doing that though, because if you set the order as you go, then when you open this report, you'll always know the order that it was sent at a glance, what was sent to the appraiser. Here's another key thing you need to keep in mind. Unlike in Appraise It Classic, where you had everything available to you, you're only going to want to put things in your report that you're going to fill out. So if you had a template or whatever here, and you know you're not going to be using comps 10 through 12, then go ahead and remove comps 10 through 12. You don't want to have empty pages sitting in there, because if you keep it nice, and I call it keeping your report tidy. If you keep your report tidy, you'll always know what was in the report. You'll have less junk in there to sift through, and you'll know at a glance what you sent to your lender or client, whoever, AMC, whoever it might be. Let me check our chat here for questions. Harold says, overall 85% of the new Pro is great. However, it still does not calculate the economic life and depreciation and the cost approach based on the effective age entered on page 1. As far as I know, that is already on the books to be corrected. We're all working from home, so we're not in the office together any longer. I used to have one of the developers sitting right behind me. But what I would do is email our tech support, tech@sfrep.com. They can get you a more concrete answer on when that's going to be corrected. But as far as I know, that has been corrected, and I believe it's going to be in version. The next version is going to be released here in the coming week or two. So as far as I know, it's been corrected. And if it has been corrected, you could get the new version earlier if you contact our tech support, I believe, and they can just have you kind of test it out for them. But I believe that has already been corrected. Don't quote me on that because I don't work in that particular department with those people, but I'm pretty sure I remember in one of our meetings that being talked about and has been fixed. Okay. So now we know how to add things to the report. We know how to remove things from the report. We know how to move things around in the report so that when we go to print, and by print I mean either print or put out a MISMO XML, whatever that might be. So if I go to orders, create MISMO XML, here everything is in the order that it is in over here. Now I can move them around for final print order in here, like I said, but that will not translate back over to the report. So I discourage people from doing that. You can do it, but make your changes over here so that when you get to this point, all you need to do is uncheck something if you don't want to include it. So if you didn't want to include the report profile, you just uncheck it. And then all you got to do is click save, and that's it. And then that way you'll always know what you sent. Now, the other thing that you can do is when you come back in here to save MISMO XML or print, you can see the last time what was actually sent along. So if you want to know, hey, did I send them the sketch? Then you can come back in here and see if the sketch was checked or not. So that allows you to see what you actually sent. Now, the last thing that some people may want to do is or an additional thing that we may want to do is to add things like word processing addenda and PDF addenda. And I usually lump those two together because they're very similar in the way that they're handled in the report panel. Now in Appraise-It Classic, you can only put one multi-page PDF into the report at a time. In Appraise-It Pro, you can put as many PDFs, single or multi-page, into the report as you want. Now the way you'll do this, you come over here to Home, and then actually no, we're gonna go to Edit. And then under Edit, there is PDF Insert. If I click that, and then I can come over here to Desktop, I can select Demo PDF. And now, and this is just a random multi-page PDF that I found on the internet, so don't read anything into whatever this says. But now I have a multi-page PDF in here, graphics and everything included. And what is this called? It was, we'll call it GRE Learning. And like I said, it's a random thing that I grabbed. So let's say that was actually something that was supposed to be in my report. I can go ahead and I notice it just is titled PDF Addendum. So in the report here, it's down here at the bottom and it's just labeled as PDF Addendum. But let's say I want to make sure that I know at a glance what that actually is. I can select it, come up here to rename, and I can call it GRE Learning. And now it is labeled as GRE Learning. And notice that it's only one line item, even though it's 3 pages, it just shows up as one line item. That's because it's just kind of attached to the report. You double click it, and then you can look through it. Your PDF can be as many pages as you want, and you can put as many PDFs as you want in there as well. I'm gonna add another PDF here. We'll do demo2.pdf. Now that's been added to the report. This is quite a few pages. And then I just hit close and see now it's going to be down here at the bottom. I'm going to select it, rename, and call that one Demo2. And now it's in there as well. Word processing pages are going to be handled in the report panel very similarly, but you're going to add them through the add function up here at the top. So I'm going to click on add. Then I'm going to type in Word, because we call them word processing addenda or addendum. So there's word processing addendum. This is the one you're going to use. The one without headers some people use, but I like the one with headers. And by headers, I mean the thing that's up at the top that gives you all the information about the address and everything that's in pretty much every page. But if you want a straight word processing document that doesn't have those headers, that is just like a Word document that's attached, then you can select without headers. I'll do that real quick. So once I double click on that, it'll be added in at the bottom. Remember, I could also just drag and drop it if I wanted. Click Save and Close. Now below Demo 2, Word Processing Addenda without headers. I double click on that. And now essentially I've just got a little embedded Word document just like you do in Appraise It Classic. But you can put as many of these in there as you want. As a matter of fact, I can hit this little green plus. Can add 2 more word processing with headers, and these can be unlimited pages as well. However, big asterisk, once again, the more multi-page graphic rich word processing addenda that you add or PDF pages that you add, it is going to increase the size of the file. And a lot of portals don't allow very much in the way of size. Like I think it's 10 megabytes for appraisal port. And a lot of them that's common. So just keep that in mind that if you go adding a bunch of these to the report, they are going to increase the size of the file. Obviously, locally, that doesn't matter for you. If you're doing non-lending, it doesn't matter. But if you are doing them and you're going to be sending them through a portal of some kind, keep that in mind. Lynn asks, what is a word processing page used for? How is it different from the addendum? Word processing, it is an addendum. It's like a word processing addendum. So a word processing page is just somewhere where you can either insert, because like I can come up here and I can do document and I can browse to a Word document and pop it in there. Instead of having to go to the Word document and then create a PDF of it and then add that, I can just add the Word document itself and then I can make changes to it. You can also, it's just a free form text editing, put tables in there, images, whatever you want to add some spice to your appraisal, whatever you want to do, that's what it's for. So you can use, it can be whatever you want it to be. Harry asked, I do a flood map for each report. Why does it add 3 more flood map info pages to the print window? Not sure what would be causing that. I've never encountered that. I would encourage you to contact our tech support. Maybe they can take a look at it and figure out what's going on there. It should only add 1 flood map page. But I mean, if for whatever reason it is doing that, you can also just select the ones that you don't want and then remove them. But if it's doing that, there may be just something set up wrong. So just contact our tech support and they can go over that with you. Let's see. Now, the reason that I'm also covering how to create a template is because creating the report and then creating a template, they all go hand in hand. So everything that we've done here, if we did that not for making an actual report be the end product, but we just wanted to set up something so that every time that we start a new report, we're ready to go. We've got everything we know we're going to need in there. Some people might, and think of templates kind of like skeletons. So some people might have templates for a specific city or a specific neighborhood or a specific zip code or a specific report type or whatever. It's up to you, the multitude of different ways and reasons that you may want to have a template. But creating the template is very, very simple because in Appraise It Pro, a template is nothing more than a report file that's just got a special designation. So all you have to do is start with a default template, make any of the changes that you want. You can pre-fill out information, you can add photos to it, you can put additional pages in there that you know you're going to need for this type of appraisal. And then when you're done, you've got it the way you want it. All you have to do is come up here to Home, select Save As, and select Save As Template. And we'll call this template Clyde, because that's where I live. I live in Clyde. So select Clyde, or type in Clyde, we'll hit Save. And now I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. Do you want to save the current report? No, I don't. Now when I come back over here to File, and I come over here to a 1004, you'll notice that now I have a template called Clyde. And if I double click on that, everything will open up just as it was when I saved that template. And it's just a starting off point for you. So it's kind of akin to what a lot of people were doing in Classic with cloning reports. What we used to tell you, it's not a great idea to clone reports. That's not an issue anymore in Pro. Essentially what you are doing is cloning. It's just we're designating these particular report files as templates so that they're easy to clone from. You're not really cloning, it's just an easy, good starting point. Now you can still just open up an old report file and start typing over it if that's what you feel comfortable doing, but the template system is kind of made for doing that specific thing. And if we come down here to open, come down here to file and then we go to open, there is a section here for open classic skeleton. So if you want to use an old classic skeleton as a starting point for creating a new template, you can do that here. You just click on this and then you can browse in that particular skeleton. Now, a word of caution there, and there's a specific reason why we made it so that you can't mass import your skeletons, and that is because skeletons over time with most people were just had a lot of garbage in them. They had a lot of pages that were marked as being edited, and we didn't know exactly what you might want to bring in from there. So we decided this would be a good time for everybody to do some housekeeping. We let you load up an old skeleton, but once you do that, you're gonna have to go through it and clean it up. And then once you've got it the way you want it, you can save it as a template. So we let you do that as a starting point, but we do not do a mass import of skeletons. Everything else will be brought over from Appraise It Classic, but your skeletons, you do need to transfer those over manually because you really need to do a lot of cleaning up because of the way that skeletons were versus the way that templates were. Other than that though, the concepts are pretty much the same. Nancy asks, when do you anticipate the new UAD reports to make their debut? I'm not sure what I'm bound under a number of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements on that. I only mention it. I don't think we were supposed to mention it, but I know that it has been mentioned already by Fannie and Freddie. SFREP as a company, and me specifically, and others at our company are members of the UAD advisory board that are in, we have monthly conference calls, meetings like this, these digital meetings, where we discuss the way that they're being built. So they're keeping us in the loop as well as all the other software vendors. I can't give you a time frame. There really isn't one yet. They're still kind of working on it. I would say that they're maybe 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way done with everything. And then of course they're gonna test it, and then we'll implement it, and then we'll test it, and then there'll be a grace period. So when they actually make their debut, I would venture a guess that maybe 2021 at some point. I don't have an actual time frame for you, and if I did, I couldn't mention it to you because I'm under a non-disclosure agreement. But just knowing the information that's out there, I would say probably sometime next year. It could be 2022. They've delayed it a couple times because of COVID, because of all these new COVID things that they had to do that kind of pushed everybody back, and they missed meetings and stuff as they, back in March when everybody was kind of moving to working at home and everybody was figuring all that out. So that slowed down the process. Anybody else have any questions? You can just go ahead and put them in the chat. But I think that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. Now, if you want a general overview of Appraise It Pro, join me on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. The link will be on our Facebook page, and we'll also email it out to everybody that you'll be able to join that meeting at 1 p.m. on Friday. It'll be just like this, except we will be going over Appraise It Pro and how to use it in general. Carol asks, is there a way to save a neighborhood, or is it a template also? There's the neighborhood database is still in Appraise It Pro, so you can save that into the neighborhood database, but you could also do it as a template as well, but you have the choice of doing either of those. Let's see, Lynn asked, how do you set up common responses? Lynn, I'm going to go over that on Friday in that particular webinar, because that's going to be kind of on Appraise It Pro in general. I'll just tell you though that all of your old comments will be brought over from Appraise It Classic, and you just use the, do I still have a thing? Yeah. You just use right here under responses, the responses panel. You just click on manage responses. Go in there and play with it. I encourage you to do that, but I will show you how to do that on Friday. All right. Well, I think that's everything. Once again, if you come up with a question that you need help with tomorrow or Thursday, Friday, over the weekend, whatever, just email training@sfrep.com. I'll be happy to answer that for you. Training@sfrep.com. And I encourage everyone to go ahead, get with our sales department, 800-523-0872. You all know the sales number. Contact them. They will be happy to get you set up with Appraise It Pro. no extra fee or anything like that. And then they can get you with tech support if you need help in installing it. And remember that Pro and Classic can it can be on the computer at the same time. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a wonderful upcoming weekend. I know it's already Wednesday, but I'm already thinking about the weekend. I'm sure everybody else is too. Stay warm out there, and thanks for showing up. And once again, check Facebook, our Facebook page, just search for SFRAP or join the SFRAP Appraiser Exchange. You just do a search for that in Facebook, and we'll be posting the link for the Friday webinar there, and we'll also email it to you. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a wonderful week.